Okay, good evening, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Orla McLaughlin, and I'm the Executive Director of Academic Programs here at Venice International University. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's VIU lecture. The VIU lectures, in its initiative, is a series of public talks that we organize to promote discussion and debate on topical issues of interest to the VIU community. So I'm grateful to Professor Francesco Goglia from the University of Exeter for proposing today's event and inviting our esteemed guests. Francesco Goglia from the University of Exeter is teaching in the Globalization Programme 2 courses this semester on intercultural communication and on identity, heritage and globalization, the multilingual city. So Professor Goglia will explain how the event today will be organized. And today the topic of discussion is the Bangladeshi community in Venice and London, sociological, sociolinguistic and educational perspectives. So a really interesting topic, and thank you also to the guests. Thank you, Francesco.
Thank you very much for coming to this lecture, colleagues and students. The focus of today's lecture will be on a community which is the largest migrant community in the metropolitan area of Venice. The four of us, and let me introduce the presenters, will present on our research on the community. We have structured this lecture in a way that each of us will present for around 10 minutes on our research, on a particular focus on our research, and then we will open the floor to questions and answers. The first presentation, just after myself introducing the event, will be Professor Francesco della Puppa, who is connected online, and Francesco is associate professor at Ca' Foscari, so local, and he has been studying the Bangladeshi community from a sociological perspective for many years, both in Italy and in London. One of the peculiarities of this community is that it's highly transnational, so we will talk about the community in Venice, in the city where we are, but also in London. The second presentation will be by Giulia Ferro, who is a research fellow in a project called Changes, a local project from the University of Ca' Foscari. And we will learn more about the linguistic repertoire, the languages and the language practices of the community in Mestre, in mainland Venice. The third presentation will be by Dr. Valeria Tonioli, who is also from Ca' Foscari and who is also involved in the project Changes. With Valeria, we will know more about also educational outcomes in the community. And the last presentation will be by myself on the Italian Bangladeshi community, so Bangladeshis who migrated from Italy to London, and I will say something on the way they are reshaping their linguistic repertoire and using their languages. So I would like to invite Francesco della Puppa to, just one second, Francesco.
Okay. May I start? Okay, sorry. Thanks, Francesco. Thanks to Venice International University for this invitation. I will try to respect the time schedule. So I will start to talk about Bangladeshi migration in Italy. That is relatively a recent phenomena. It started in the 80s, I mean, 90, 81, 82, with what we can call the age of the pioneer. There were few hundreds, maybe less, of Bangladeshi migrants in Italy, and the great development, they arise, they increasingly rapidly in number in the 90s due to the border of some other European countries, such as Switzerland, France, and Germany, that were going to close to migration. And at the same time, due to the many amnesties to regularize undocumented migrants that during the 90s has been done in Italy. That is to say that many undocumented migrants, I mean undocumented Bangladeshi, they were already in Europe. They move towards Italy because they heard that Italy let them to get a residence permit. So many Bangladeshi migrants already in Europe come to Italy, and also many Bangladeshi migrants left their country to come to Europe, especially Southern Europe, especially Southern Italy, due to the amnesties and the opportunity to get a residence permit in this country. Of course, it was because Italy needs a lot of cheap and flexible labor force in this year. After having a residence permits during the 90s, the Bangladeshi population that were mainly made of men and bachelor men, and they were mainly concentrated in Rome. They widespread all over the country, and especially in the north region of the country, and especially the north east region of the country, because when they were in Rome, they may hidden among the community, but after having got a residence permit, they didn't risk anything in moving toward the country, so they move toward the northern and the northeastern region, because there were more job opportunity. It was easier to get a job that may let them make the family reunification. Actually, in the 90s, the number of Bangladeshi in the northern and northeastern region increased a lot, but at the same time increased a lot of also the number of the women and then of children, usually born or bring to Italy when they were very young. But basically, Bangladeshi children during 90s and 2000 born in Italy, so they were so-called second generation. So during 90s and 2000, we have a process of familiarization of Bangladeshi immigration. I mean, it was a migration of workers, and within 10 years, they became a migration of families. And they were basically coming from the middle classes of Bangladeshi society. We are talking about 90s and 2000. That is to say, quite well-educated people, quite solvent, that didn't leave Bangladesh because they were trying to survive to extreme misery. Rather, they were from middle classes that they were searching for upward social mobility. That is to say, they were searching for better condition for themselves in respect to the condition, social and economic condition of their parents, and they were trying to give to their children better condition to the condition they experience. And this upward social mobility, they felt wasn't possible in Bangladesh, and it was just possible with a migration from the so-called global south to the so-called global north, that is to say Europe and Italy. what happened? So sorry. Today there are around 150,000 Bangladeshi, but maybe they are more than 200,000 due. If we take into account also the potential undocumented migrants. And Veneto is one of the region which the highest number of Bangladeshi migrants after Rome and Lazio because of Rome, and along with Lombardy because of Milan. Many of them are in Venice due to the presence of Fincantieri, the shipbuilding factory. Actually, in Venice, there are around 11,000 and maybe 20,000 Bangladeshi. What happened at the end of the 2000s? We know about the global economic crisis that frustrated the aspiration of the working classes and middle classes in Italy, aspiration of upward social mobility. Basically, someone from the working class have no choices to improve the condition of their family. It's true for both native Italian, and it's even more true for Italian with Bangladeshi or migrant background. So those people that migrated to Italy, that left the country because they were searching for upward social mobility, found themselves at the end of the 2000s to have basically zero opportunity to increase their social status and their children's social status. But at the same time, they were more than 10, sometimes more than 20 years in Italy. So they achieved the opportunity to ask for the Italian citizenship. And that is to say, to receive an European passport. So those people find themselves in a situation in which in Italy, where they migrated to find better condition for their social realization and for the social realization of their children, this opportunity, they were basically frustrated due also to the economic crisis, but at the same time, they found a new opportunity due to the Italian and European citizenship. So they use the Italian citizenship. From one end, some of them as a final step of social and geographical stabilization in the country as citizens. From some others of them, they use the, let's say, power of the European passport embedded in the Italian citizenship as a key for reactivate the migration mobility. And we are moving to the second part of my brief speech, because many of them use the Italian passport to make a new migration, usually towards UK and London, due to colonial cultural links and heritage that the Indian subcontinent have with the United Kingdom. So many of them moved towards the UK because they wanted to this new migration, or this onward migration, was an investment on the future of their children, because they perceive that their children in Europe, they didn't have any opportunity to realize themselves. In the Southern Europe, in Italy, their children would have been condemned to find the same professional job trajectory of their fathers. So unskilled workers in a shipbuilding factory, for example. And if they accepted this condition for themselves, they would not accept this condition for their children born and grow up and socialize in Italy. So they moved to UK because they feel that the British society was a society in which everyone would have the opportunity to realize socially and economically himself, despite any so-called ethnic, cultural, religious, and linguistic identity. So they perceive the British society as a more meritocratic society. And but they move towards UK also because they perceive the British welfare system as a more inclusive welfare system that support the working class family. They also moved to the UK and London because of the governance of the British governance of the multiculturalism, in which they feel not to be stigmatized because they are Muslim, because they are, let's say, racialized, and so on. So, but they also moved towards the UK because, of course, due to the colonial history in UK, there's the biggest Bangladeshi diaspora in the world. So they felt to find a more satisfactory environment. But of course, so actually the data from the Italian Statistical Office says that probably today more than 35,000 Italian Bangladeshi are living in the UK. That is to say, left Italy towards the UK with another migration experience. But of course, some of their hopes have been frustrated in the UK too, because they find themselves to decrease their economic and job condition. They found themselves in the low-skilled tertiary sector, low-paid sector, with a very antisocial timetable and hours, working, for example, as a Uber taxi driver with very low salary. And they had to ask for benefit, for example, that idealized welfare system that they were searching for, but that pushed them to not to work more than, for example, 25 hours, because if they worked more than 25 hours, they would have not access to the benefit. So in some way, they are trapped in a kind of welfare system that from one end give them the benefit, and from the other end control their family behavior, control their everyday life. And then they find that the biggest Bangladeshi community doesn't welcome them very well, but they are quite, let's say, racism, because they are European and the British Bengali feel to be British, or because the British Bengalis come from a particular district of Bangladesh, while the Italian Bangladeshi come from all over the Bangladesh. So this new migration experience has lights and dark sides. However, this is just a picture of their migration biography and family trajectory. And so we will see what will happen next, and what the decision and choices of the new generation will be. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Francesco. And so we have a very interesting background on the community in Italy, in Venice, and in London. Thank you, because I think you have to leave at one point. We have the questions at the end, but if there are any questions in a couple of minutes for Francesco, we may have them now. Otherwise, at the end of the 4 presentations. Ok, Oh, Luca.
Oh, I'm Luca Pest. No, I just wanted to ask something about the new trends, because I've heard that in Mestre, many Bangladeshi are buying houses, and so basically as a big phenomenon of an interesting phenomenon which is rather recent. I don't know whether how does this match with this thing you're saying that they're leaving, that many of them are leaving?
So, so let's say that many of them are living and still living in the UK, but they have a flat and shops here in Italy, and they are managing these, let's say, businesses from there. And sometimes they hire other people, a family member or friends or a country national working and living here. So they have a double income because of their work in London and the income of their rent or with their flats, with their shop here. So it may match in this way, but also many of them are coming back because they are disappointed with the life in the UK, or their children or their wives are disappointed, and so many of them come back here and try to stabilize in Italy. So probably they may have some capitals and they invest it in flats, for example. We also may underline that Bangladeshi migration to Italy is increasing, but also is changing. Is increasing in number, but changing in composition, because in the 90s and 2000, they were mainly from the middle classes that came here, while now there are even, let's say, some subalternal classes at risk of exploitation and the risk of speculation, let's say. So many of them, the most established people may find a good business to buy flats and to rent them to the newcomers, maybe poorer than them, and put many of them in a flat. For example, 10, 15 people in a flat, making speculation of the housing needs of their connational that are coming right now. So, of course, the social reality is like a prism. There are many facets and many shadows, and so I hope, to have answer to your question. Matching, it match because many manage the flats and the shop from London. Many of them are coming back to live here again, and many of them that maybe never went to the UK, they are doing some business, exploiting the needs of the newcomers.
Thank you, Francesco. What makes the Bangladeshi community in Italy or in Venice interesting is that it's transnational. So as we have heard, they may have a house in Mestre, live in London, but also issues of languages and education that we will hear in a bit are also hinting at transnationalism. Are there any other questions before we go on? Yes.
Because this is a chance to ask about London and about migration, I've two quick questions. One is very simple. I'm wondering, I seem to remember when I was in London a long time ago, maybe 10, 20 years ago, the Bangladeshi community was in East London. To what extent is it segregated, and to what extent is it integrated? Are they integrated at all? And then my question about, I know very little. The only things I know are cultural products like the Bangla Venezia film or Gun Island, the novel by Amitav Ghosh. So I'm wondering, the novel really, what struck with me was that he's talking about the Odyssey of people who come from Bangladesh, and it's not a journey like an easy journey. It takes a year or more, and people die on the way. Is this fiction or is there truth in this story?
Francesco?
Yes, this the last part of the description. It's more about this last generation of Bangladeshi coming, those who I define as subalternal classes, not the one arriving in the 90s, 2000, but those people that are risking their life during the journey. They are what I say, they are the newcomers. And no, it's not fiction, it's true. Those Bangladeshi people that come from the so-called Balkan roads, basically walking from, let's say, maybe not Bangladesh, but from Pakistan till Bosnia, and then Croatia, Slovenia, and Italy. Or those Bangladeshis who in some way arrive in the Arab country, in North Africa, in Libya, and then they cross the Mediterranean Sea through the so-called Mediterranean journey. They absolutely risk their life, and it take them more than 1 year, and that's true. Those novels exactly describe their journey experience. Of course, this experience is different from the experience of the Italian Bangladeshi that get the Italian citizenship in 2000, 2010, 2015, because they arrived here in the 90s or the early 2000s. They arrived through different routes, struggling, of course, but maybe without risking their life. And now they are living in the East London, but maybe in the east part of the East London. So no more Tower Hamlets, that where Bangladesh and Bangla is a kind of brands that take part into the gentrification of these neighborhoods of London. But they are living, for example, in Ilford, Dagenham, so peripheric area at the east part of the East London. So it's true. It's you define it an odyssey, and let me quote a title of a book I did. It's a graphic novel. The title is The Line of the Horizon, because like an odyssey, it's a journey it's a never-ending journey, like a journey towards the line of the horizon that you cannot reach the horizon. Those people cannot reach the horizon, but they keep on moving.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Francesco. I think we can go on with the next presentation. Thank you, Francesco. With the next presentation by Giulia Ferro, we go on. Now we have some background information about the Bangladeshi migration to Italy, and we know more about the kind of migration, and we also know about the new migration towards London. But with Giulia's presentation, we zoom in at the level of Mestre, and we learn more about the languages used, maintained, or learned in Mestre by the community. Thank you, Giulia.
Thank you, Francesco. Sorry. Thank you, Francesco, for inviting us. Then thank you to the VIU organizing committee. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Thank you, Francesco della Puppa, for the sociological introduction. I would like to concentrate on the sociolinguistic perspectives and of the Venetian Bangladeshi community. I will share with you some excerpts of the interviews that I have conducted during the last 2 years within the Changes project in Ca' Foscari University of Venice. First of all, I would like to change the slide. Okay. to create a theoretical framework introducing the concepts of attitude and motivation and how this can influence linguistic practice in language learning and in maintaining. Attitude, of course, is something that can affect our everyday life in a positive way or in a negative way, and it is important also in the within the linguistic context. It can foster restoration and preservation, but it can also lead to decay or death of a language. It comprises a person's reactions and opinions about languages, but it is also a dynamic concept and it is influenced by social factors, but also by language contact, as in the case of migration. Another concept that I would like to highlight here is motivation, quite complex concept that is made of the entanglement of both extrinsic, so external factors, but also intrinsic internal factors. And attitude and motivation work together and within practice and the language maintaining and learning, and they can change according to the languages of the repertoire, as we will see later, but also through gender, generation, and other factors. So I will share with you some excerpts. If you can read them now, I will stop later maybe, or if you're particularly interested in something, you can tell me later. So starting from the local language and its learning, since as Francesco della Puppa said, there are many newcomers who have to face the Italian learning process. I have shared with you these two excerpts, one from a young man, a newly arrived young man who has come for economic reasons, for economic migration. And he says that he is working plus studying, so he doesn't have enough time or enough energy to study, and he can't concentrate. And then we have this other experience of a mother and now an Italian teacher who came to Italy in 2006. And she says that she has started studying Italian many years later. Because also the situation back in 2006 was different from now. And she started learning Italian many years later because she got pregnant, she had children, so she needed to take care of her children. From the point of view of motivation, we can see that in both cases we have a responsibility. In the first case, we have work responsibilities, and in the second case, we have home and care responsibilities, which lower down the motivation and the possibilities and opportunities to learn Italian. On the other hand, learning Italian is really important for survival, as one interviewee once said. This woman who migrated to Italy 6 years ago, enrolled in a language course after arriving to Italy, but she got pregnant, so she couldn't finish her course. But she understands that she needs the language for everything, to go to the doctor. She has a newborn, so she needs to go to the doctor with her husband because she can't understand what the doctor says. And when she got to the hospital for delivery, she had many problems and she couldn't express her pain, her problems, and her needs. So there is also a strong motivation to learn Italian because of survival. Coming to the second language of the repertoire, let's say, the language of the heart. I don't know if you can see the, okay. The language of the heart, as one teacher once said, that is Bangla. As Francesco said before, there are many children of Bangladeshi origin that are born here. From this premise, there are many 3 or 4 schools, only in Mestre and Marghera, for Bangla schools to teach Bangla to children of Bangladeshi origin. So here we have the statement of the founder of one of these schools, who says that he realized when he founded this school that many children couldn't speak correctly their parents' mother tongue. And he says that if they can't speak with their relatives, their cousins, their grandparents, they lose everything. Here we have some other perspective of mothers, 2 of second generation and 1 of first generation of migration. In the first case, we see that this young new mother was raised speaking both Bangla with her parents and Italian with her brother in this case. And when her mother imposed to speak Bengali, they started speaking a mixed Italian, as she said. On the other hand, we see that many mothers, many parents are afraid that their children won't be able to speak Bangla, because this second excerpt says that children speak Italian in class 8 hours a day, but they speak Bangla only with their parents. So many people are afraid that their children will lose their fluency in Bangla once grown up. And coming to the third excerpt, this other mother says that she teaches Bengali to her children, but she introduces us to the other languages of the repertoire, because she says that once they will grow up, they will be trilingual as well, because they will learn other languages. So coming to the other languages of the repertoire, first of all, we have English, of course, that is considered a very prestigious language for colonization reason, but also for the importance of the London community, and also because it is a language that is taught from an early age in Bangladesh. And this, on the second excerpt, we see that this mother makes her newborn listen to things in English with Alexa, but also she introduces another language that is Arabic. And in this case, we have also the religious perspective on the language. So Arabic is taught in Bangladesh in the madrasa, to read and to chant and to be able to read and sing surahs, to read the Quran. And here in Mestre too, there are imams that go to Bangladeshi people's houses to teach children to read and write in the Arabic alphabet and to be able to read Quran. And from the last excerpt, we see that also Hindi is one of the languages of the repertoire. Many people that I have interviewed said that they have learned Hindi from watching movies, from watching cartoons, from Bollywood as well. So this is another language of the repertoire. I wanted to share with you all these languages in an example, in a little part of an interview that I have conducted with a woman. So G is me, Sue is the short name for the interviewee. And Jay is the 8-year-old child of the interviewee. So I start speaking in Hindi, so talking about the languages that she knows. So I say, you know, Hindi, Urdu, English, Bangla, and a little bit of Italian. She answers in Italian, say yes, but then she answers saying in Hindi, Urdu nahi, Hindi. So I don't speak Urdu, I speak Hindi. And then I answer saying Urdu, Hindi, same, like they are the same language actually. And then she answers in Italian, va bene, sì, sì, va bene. Then I speak to her child in Italian. I ask him, do you understand Hindi? And he answers in Hindi, Tora Tora, a little bit. So I am a little bit impressed. Tora Tora, wow. And her mother adds that usko yaad hai, uska ek Pakistani dost hai, wo Italy mein aaya tha. He remembers it. He has a Pakistani friend that has come to Italy. And then the child speaks to her mother in Bangla again. And then I switch again to Italian. And then the last line we have Jay telling me, poi c'è un mio amico Indian, poi c'è un mio amico, that is a very colloquial and a very high Italian structure, but it switches again to saying Indian instead of Indiano, as it is in proper Italian. So this is my just wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction to all the sociolinguistic perspectives within this community. Thank you. I will leave the floor to Valeria.
Thank you, Giulia. We will have questions in the end. So now we know more about the linguistic repertoire and the uses of languages in Mestre. And next presentation is by Valeria Tonioli, who will expand on this with some insights on educational perspectives. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Francesco. Just a second, I will share my screen. Okay. No, it's not this one. It's not this one, sorry. Okay. Just a second. This one. Okay, I think I'm sharing. Okay, so thank you very much for this invitation. Thank you to Professor Goglia and to the VIU. I will focus, as it has been said, on plurilingual, but especially on educational practices in transnational Bangladeshi families, because as we know, many of them live here in Venice, but also have relatives living in London or also in Bangladesh. So I will briefly introduce my research, then I will show you some data, and I will conclude with some suggestions and general ideas, general findings. So we have already seen that the Bangladeshi community here in Mestre is one of the biggest community, and it is made up families, especially women and children. So I would like to share with you this data. In August 2023, at the local hospital of Mestre, the 33% of newborns were of Bangladeshi families. These are the two areas where the majority of the Bangladeshi community live, in Mestre and Marghera. And what is also important to know is that even though Bangladeshi families represent 4% of the population, their presence in social services as user is 30%. And in some specific services, like the case of child with disabilities, for example, their presence is 60% as user. So many of the Bangladeshi families living here seek help from social services, particularly in situation of educational deprivation, loss of employment, lack of housing, and critical issues in communicating with schools, social workers, and also in a situation dealing with child rearing practices. Many social workers and teachers criticize and judge negatively different cultural practices of child rearing among Bangladeshi families and our Western expectations regarding educational practices. I would also like to say that in some specific areas of Mestre and Marghera, in preschool services, the percentage of children with migrant background is 98%, and half of them, more than half of them, are of Bangladeshi origin. This situation has been questioned by schools, social services for years, who have noted critical issues in facilitating the social and linguistic inclusion of Bangladeshi children and their families, and who are also looking for new ways to negotiate different cultural, educational, but also linguistic perspectives. So services and schools are left wondering what the different expectations of families and children are, and what good practices can be used to facilitate social and linguistic inclusion in our area. So I'm focusing in observing the different educational practices at home and at school, focusing on children aged 3 to 6 years old. So I'm working at the preschool, and then focusing also on interactions between mothers and children, or children and children, or teachers and pupils. And I'm focusing also in specific moments of daily life, when they eat during mealtime or playtime, when they arrive at school, or when they, for example, read a story, a tale, a fairy tale for children. And I'm also, of course, gathering the different perspectives of all the participants regarding their beliefs, their representations, their points of view on child rearing and children education. I would like to share with you some quotes from parents' interview, showing you the parents' perspective. So one mother told me, in Bangladesh, children play together. They are always together, and other people in the society are responsible for children's education. They have the opportunity to speak. Here it is not possible. My child is always alone. And this maybe may seem something very weird, because we know that the community has a high number of person coming from Bangladesh, but we know that the community is not a real community, as Francesco della Puppa said, but they are divided among them depending on their country of origin, the political parties, for example, their religion. So there are a lot of Bangladeshi people living here, but they are not enjoying the family and social network they would join in Bangladesh. And we know that there are specific roles in the society regarding child rearing. So the child education is left to, for example, other siblings, older siblings, other members of the family like aunties, cousins, grandfathers, who are not here, because we know it's a recent migration. So the majority of the Bangladeshi people we meet here are family made up of nuclear families, father and mother, and maybe one child or two children. This is the point of view of the teachers. When I talk to Bangladeshi mothers, I get the impression that they have different perception of education, broadly speaking, and we know that it's true. And also the general idea about the importance of speaking Italian or other languages. As Giulia said, they are trilingual, bilingual children, but they don't know the Italian language when they enroll preschool service. So for teachers, they are not enough autonomous autonomous in speaking Italian, not enough autonomous in playing with the other children, not enough autonomous in eating alone, because their child rearing is different. And many of the teachers consider these children being very quiet, very isolated, and sometimes they call these children invisible children. Another teacher told me the other day, I saw the mother opening his mouth and giving a child a drink with a bottle without even asking the child if he was thirsty. I asked her why, the teacher told it is important to talk and ask him how he is, what he wants, and repeat the words. But this is our point, Western expectation, Western point of view, Italian at least expectation. Her son rarely speaks and expresses himself more in gestures. And she replied that she does this because she is a good mother. So when we are dealing with these different cultural practices on child rearing, we should consider also that when we are in a certain way judging different perspectives, we should take into account that if we say to a mother, don't do this, don't do the other thing, here is different, maybe she is perceiving that we are judging her like being not a good mother. So these two different perspectives at a certain point clash and may cause misunderstandings, frustrations, both in parents and in teachers, and sometimes discomfort for children who, in some cases, may adapt to the different context and different educational practices, but in some cases, for them, it's harder, it's more hard. This is a picture of some video that I recorded at school, of course, with all the permission from all the participants involved. And here you can see a boy, he's coloring a mango. And we invited the mothers at school in order to value positively the mother tongue of all the children. And you can see in the blue circle, she is handing the hand of the child, and she is, in the video, I cannot show the video, but in the video, we would see that she is coloring for him without letting him doing the activity, like taking over him. And I try to have a conversation, interaction with the child, asking him, is it nice? Is it the same, that the mango he had in front of him and the picture? But the mother answered for him, yes. And then she says to the child what he has to answer to me. Bolo, sì. Bolo means say, yes. And this is constantly heard by us, bolo, bolo, bolo. So parents provide the correct sentence they want the children tell us or answer to us. This is another young girl. She's eating alone at school in the canteen. She is a 4-year-old. She perfectly can eat and feed herself. But when she's at home, she's fed by her mother. In this case, the mother is using a spoon. I ask myself, is she using the spoon because am I there as a participant in the ethnography research? Because I know that in all the other many families, they eat, children are fed by their mothers using the right hand. So this is the only case where she is using the spoon. And I know that there is a negative stereotype. I mean, they know that for many teachers, eating with the hand is considered unpolite. So I don't know if she's, I should ask her, I don't know, I still don't know. Also in this case, the nonverbal communication between mother and the child is predominant. I asked to Samia, which is an invented name for privacy reason, I asked to Samia, the girl, do you want a shrimp? Because we were eating together, and they eat on the bed. And this is something that for teachers it's difficult to understand, because they're always saying eat at the table, eat together, interact between you, ask your child, what did you do today at school? But the mealtime in Bangladeshi families is different. So children eat with the mother on the bed, then maybe fathers eat later, and other siblings, maybe their boy eat in another room. So they have a different way of eating together also. So I asked Samia if she wanted shrimp. She perfectly understands. She answered with a gesture. Even if she can perfectly speak Italian, but at home, she didn't interact with me verbally, just with the non-verbal part of her communication. And then the mother repeated the question, Chinri mash kaba, which is a very colloquial way to ask if she wants shrimps. The girl didn't understand the question, so she said, The mother repeats the question in a better way, Chinri mash kabe he, like, do you want to eat shrimps? Yes. But she is still using a very colloquial way, and then the girl answers with a gesture of the hand, of the head. So the predominant part of the nonverbal communication is there, but also it's quite interesting to see how children can readapt themselves to the different educational context that they are living. So we should try to, and I will conclude, negotiate new different practices of language care, education, and socialization. In many cases, it's not a question of doing something right or wrong. It's a question of care. So thank you for listening to the presentation.
Thank you, Valeria. And the next speaker is myself. Dove sono? Questa. Okay, thank you. And of course, this is the last presentation. I'm also aware that we have a Vaporetto at 6, so I will try to be very concise. We are going to London now. We've heard background information from Francesco della Puppa on the migration of Bangladeshis to Europe and to London. We have heard also the situation in Mestre and in Venice. Now we're going to London, where I live. I actually live in East London, where the community, as you have heard, is mainly based. And I will tell you something about the community first, about the migration, the new migration to London, and then I have also some excerpts from my interviews, because just like Giulia and Valeria, I also work collecting data via interviews. So very briefly, something that we have already heard from Francesco della Puppa at the beginning, some Bangladeshis in Italy that gained the Italian citizenship, just like other communities in Italy of migrant background, decide to use this newly acquired Italian citizenship to move to another country, to engage with what we call onward migration. And of course, as Francesco mentioned, the UK is a magnet for these migrants because of the cultural links between Bangladesh and the UK, and because of the idea that the UK can offer education in English for the future of their children. So this connection may be real or imagined, because remember, the majority of parents in these Bangladeshi families do not speak English or have a very, very little knowledge of English. Anyway, this acquiring of Italian citizenship and freedom movement that we don't have anymore with the UK, but we used to have until 2021, has allowed a lot of families to move from Italy and also from Venice to the UK. And I focus on the study of what happens in these families in terms of languages. But before, I would like to tell you some information that were provided for the first time in 2020 by the Italian consulate in London. You may know that all Italians residing abroad, including myself, have to register in a register that is AIRE. It's the Register for Italians Living Abroad. Usually this register is not really providing the right number of people residing in a country, because some people may even forget to register and don't feel the obligation. But because of Brexit, if anything is positive out of Brexit, maybe nothing, but I think that this is positive, we have a kind of exact number of Italians living in the UK. What was astonishing for me in 2020 is that the consulate was aware that some Italians living in the UK were of migrant origin in Italy. So even the consulate was providing some numbers of Italians. So 25% of the total number of Italians living in the UK, which is around 400,000, were people born in a third country. And the consulate also provided us with some information. They were Italian from Brazil, Italian from Bangladesh, Italian from Pakistan, and so on. So these are those who acquire citizenship in the country. And the Bangladeshis were 11% of the 25%, so around 15,000, 20,000, more or less. So this means that some Italians, 25% of the total of Italians in the UK, are actually Italians with a more complex linguistic background and ethnic background. The methodology of my study, I used focus groups with students in 2 secondary schools right in the heart of East London, the one that we mentioned before in Newham and East Ham. That are, for those of you who do not know London, they are in the area where the Olympic Games Stadium is, Stratford. You must have seen it in 2012. But I also conducted interviews with university students, with children of these families who are now attending universities, and observations in key places. Key places, for example, the one I like to show all the time, because this is an Italian coffee shop, a bar. But it is Italian. It tells us that it is Italian. The colors tell us that it's Italian. The Caffè Italiano tells us it's Italian, but it's not Italian. It's Italian plus also Bangladeshi. If we could zoom in at the level of the front door, we could discover that there are notice boards and messages in Bengali. If we enter this cafe, one of many in East London, we can order a coffee, an orzo, a barley coffee that is not at all common in London, and a samosa. So it is a hybrid place. It tells us something about a community which is not an Italian community only, and it's not a Bangladeshi community only. Some data from surveys in these 2 schools. These 2 schools where I collected data are really unique. They are in a very multi-ethnic area. East London is one of the most multicultural places in Europe, if not the world. And these schools, both schools, one is a girls' school, one is a boys' school, have 80% of students with that do not have English as their first language. So imagine the level of super diversity, the level of complexity in terms of languages. I asked the students, I asked teachers to help me to distribute the questionnaires to Italian Bangladeshi students. In both schools, there are over 100 students with this background, just to give you an idea. And of course, with questionnaires, I get already some ideas about the maintenance of the language. So what happens to the linguistic repertoire that we've heard in Mestre, in Venice, replicated in the UK, where you have English as the main language. So when I ask what is the language they use most often, many of them answer Italian, many of them answer Italian and Bengali, and of course English, it's the language of the country. But you can see that Italian and Bengali, that are heritage languages in the UK, are still used, or they declare the use. Remember, we work with what speakers tell us about the language. We don't, at least I don't show you recordings of real use of the language. just to show you very quickly, the differences in terms of interlocutors, my students here know very well that domains of language use are very important. So as you can see very briefly, with father and mother, the majority answers that they use Bengali, and this is expected. This is the family heritage language, and parents are both using Bengali. But if you focus on classmates and friends, you get different answers. You can get also answers on Italian and English, Bengali and English. So what is interesting here is that, or with siblings, we can see that 5 answer Italian, some of them answer Bengali and Italian. So this means that the heritage languages are maintained or are perceived as maintained. Also, it's at the level of communication with peers, with friends, with classmates. And I would like to stress classmates, because these 2 schools are special schools. They are state schools that are aware of the complexity of the languages and linguistic diversity in the area where they are and in the school. And they actually allow students to use these languages in break time, even in school activities. So in these schools, they do mathematics, and if they identify groups that can speak Portuguese, Spanish, or Bengali, they allow them to use these languages. This is something that doesn't happen all around Europe, and it's not at all common. So this is important for the potential awareness and maintenance of linguistic diversity. Some examples from my interviews, and of course you have the original in Italian at the top, and at the bottom you have the translation into English. So I asked, for example, about the use of languages in the family, and in this case, Rakesh, and these are all pseudonyms and not real names, tells me something very interesting. Tells me that at home they keep on using Bengali, fine, expected, this is a family language, but with siblings, he always speaks Italian. And this is something that happens often. Here we have 2 heritage languages brought with them to the UK. One is Bengali, the heritage language that was heritage language back in Mestre as well, or in Rome. But now we have also another language, the language learned by children, at least the elder siblings were born in Italy, they attended school in Italy, and for them Italian is the main language. So what happens in the majority of families is that Italian is also a heritage language maintained by siblings, particularly the elder siblings, because parents still speak Bengali and they have Italian as a second language, as we have seen. It's interesting that Rakesh also tells us that among themselves, they never use Bengali unless they want to use it as a secret language. So there is still an option to use Bengali because Italian can be understood. Now, what is interesting, as I said, that heritage languages are maintained within the family, and this is what the literature is telling us. And so there you can see that Italian and Bengali are maintained in the family. We also heard from Francesco della Puppa that East London is where a lot of Bangladeshis are living, of many kinds, Italian Bangladeshis, but also British Bangladeshis. So chances to hear and see Bengali in the linguistic landscape in East London are many. It is also commodified. If you visit the Tower of London, a very important monument in London, you will also have a plate in Bengali, because this acknowledges the presence of Bengali speakers or Bangladeshis in East London. But what is interesting is that the school, as I said, facilitates even the maintenance of Italian. Schools understand that they have students coming from Italy, and they are more complex students. They can speak also Bengali. So as soon as they arrive, they identify them, they assign them to a buddy. They have a buddy system, so someone who speaks Italian too. Italian is also a foreign language in the UK. Many people learn Italian, and schools may understand that they have in front of them students who are fluent in Italian. So they ask them to sit an exam in Italian. It's possible. In the UK, you can sit a GCSE, the secondary school level exam, and an A-level high school maturità in Italian. So schools, once they identify that they have students in front of them who are fluent in Italian, they offer them the chance to sit the exam. So even if they don't teach them Italian because they don't have any possibility, any teachers. This is very interesting because Bengali and Italian as heritage languages in London are in competition. They are both maintained, but but Italian is also a language that is potentially useful for the CV of these students. They can sit the exams, and it's perceived to be a good item to put in the CV. As you can see from these extracts, they tell us something about the choice of an A level in Italian. The last lines tell us that it's also good for the students to show that they have an A level in Italian with a good mark to access university. The same thing cannot be said about Bengali, although it's possible in the UK to sit an exam in Bengali, GCSE and A level are available. All participants tell me that they didn't do it, and they are not doing it. And even schools tell me that they themselves invite them not to sit the exam in Bengali, because Bengali is known as an oral language. They lack the knowledge of literacy in Bengali. So schools advise them not to do it because they would get a very low mark in skills like writing and reading. And students perceive it as a danger of getting a bad mark, and also they perceive Bengali as a second-class language. This is a perception; it's not true. So they prefer not to sit any exams in the language. So you can see that the two heritage languages are in competition. They are both maintained, but one is maintained at home or in the community, in the wider community. The other one, Italian, is maintained, but it has an extra value or perceived value. Another interesting thing that Francesco della Puppa mentioned is that, of course, the Italian Bangladeshi community joins two large communities in the UK. One is the Italian community and one is the Bangladeshi or the British Bangladeshi community. In East London, in particular, you have a large British Bangladeshi community. Because of historical reasons, the majority of Bengali speakers in the UK, coming from Sylhet, an area district in Bangladesh, they speak a variety of Bengali, Sylheti, which makes them different from Italians who mainly speak Bengali. So this is an extra way to differentiate the community from both the Bangladeshi community and the Italian community. As you can see, I like to I think the quote from a parent at the bottom shows how parents have a clear idea about language use. And this parent in particular says that he doesn't want his children to use any dialects, whether they are Italian dialects or dialects of Bengali. He wants his children to learn to speak what he calls the more normal one, or the correct form of language, the standard language. Thank you. I don't want to take more time, but I think I would like to have some time for questions on the three presentations and Francesco della Puppa's one too. Are there any questions at all? You have had a picture of migration to Italy, to the UK, and what happens in terms of languages and education. Giulia, Valeria, or myself, and also online, but I cannot see people online.
Great presentations. Thank you very much, Christoph Mauch. Great presentations. I'm wondering how you select the interviewees. ultimate goal is? Is it, it's not an oral history, and are you working together? I mean, somehow the projects speak to each other, especially in the case of Giulia and Valeria. Are you using the same interviews? And maybe, yeah, maybe you can speak to the data set.
Okay, can you hear me? Thank you for the question. We are working in the same project, but we don't use the same interview, the same data set. So for example, I'm working at preschool and I'm working with mothers of children attending preschool. So I'm conducting a qualitative research with ethnographic approach inside school and inside families. And I also work with the social services of the municipality of Venice. And I selected the participants, explaining to them our aim of the research, and they decided to participate or not. They decide freely to be part of the study. So we meet regularly. They know that the video are translated by an interpreter working with us, and are seen by the teachers, but also by the families. They want to see themselves in the videos, and reflect among what they see months later. And only in some cases, Giulia and I made an interview to the same people living here and representing that, like the main, how can I say this? They consider themselves being the people who represent the community of the Bangladeshi people living here. So we went together to interview them, but we asked different questions. So I focus more on the educational part, but also on the plurilingual use of the languages, and Giulia on the heritage language maintenance.
Thank you for your methodological question. As Valeria said, we're working on the same team, but I focus on being in this project. We are focusing on the instruments and tools to help Bangladeshi people learn Italian, also from the cultural perspective. So I'm focusing on the main difficulties during my interviews of learning Italian. Also, as you have seen in my presentation, there are many difficulties that are not only linked to the language itself, but also to other opportunities and to other sociological constraints. So yeah, our interviews are not the same, but sometimes culture and of course language are linked, and yeah, many phenomena are linked together by culture and language. I hope we have answered your question.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. I have a question related to the linguistic perspective. So it's quite clear that there is some kind of worries especially from first generation parents, that there is some kind of loss of the Bangladeshi language from the second generation and their children and so on. But I want to know, what is the perspective from the children from the second or third generation children about the study of their mother tongue, and is this something that can be shared in the community, or maybe is only subjective from people to people?
Thank you
Thank
for your question. I can say that maybe it is something subjective, but from many interviews, I think I can say we have realized that there is a very ideological layer on linked to the maintenance of Bangla language, for example. It is something that we have not talked about, that is that Bangla, one of my interviewee once said that Bangla is the only language that has become the national language after a massacre. So they have a really strong motivation to maintain it from an ideological point of view. So it is a very internal, strong internal motivation. And on the other hand, we have also the 21st of February, that is the Matribhasha Divos, that is the Mother Tongue Day, that is celebrated and by UNESCO as well. So it started from Bangladesh after the massacre in Dhaka in 1952. So yes, that's it. I hope I have answered